In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, amen. I wanted to talk to you guys today about a topic in the service and how service can devolve very quickly into something that's superficial. And one of the fears of service is this idea of superficiality, where we stay at the surface and we think about service in terms of, how it looks, right? And how we appear and how we are perceived and who we are impressing and who we are working for. And I kind of want to dig deeper into that topic and talk about all of those things. So, service, unfortunately, in some places, service is like a status symbol, right? Are you a servant? Are you in servant prep? My kid's a servant. Parents may even be pushing for their kids to become servants, right? Parents may want, you may want to push to become a servant. And it's a title, at some level. But then the question is, what about the heart, right? And what really affects other people, it turns out, is not your title or what you've said. It's all about your heart, right? And the heart is what changes other people. People perceive your heart and they perceive God in your heart, and that changes them sometimes without you saying a word, right? Caleb was one of the two people. Joshua and Caleb are the only two people that entered the promised land. And the word Caleb literally means the heart of God, right? And so you have this beautiful symbol of who enters the promised land and who actually makes it in to other people's hearts as well as the promised land. Come on in, Daniel. I just lost it. Here it is. So Christ actually said something that's kind of scary. He said that there will be people who will say to Christ, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we, expel demons in your name? So there's a people who prophesied in Christ's name, taught about Christ. And when Jesus said, what will he say at that time? Does anyone remember? Depart from me, I never knew you. That's a scary thing to hear, right? That you're out there prophesying in Christ's name, and then Christ's response is what? Depart from me, I never knew you. Which means if I never knew you, you never knew me. And is that possible? Sure, right? Because I can talk about someone and not actually know the person, right? I can tell you all about somebody. I can say, Emba Sarapion, I've heard him say this, and I heard him say that, and I heard him say this. But do you know him? Or do you know about him? Have you heard about him? But have you heard him speak? Have you spoken with him? Right? So we can find ourselves in a position where we have all kinds of religious knowledge, and we're spouting all kinds of things, reciting even the names of saints and their stories and different tradition in the church, and these are the hymns that I know, or this is even the Bible verses that I know, and this is the patristics that I know. And Christ just looks at you and says, I never even knew you, and you never even knew me. Which is, again, a very scary place to be. And that's not as hard as you imagine it would be, right? Because sometimes people just like the environment of church. They like the clergy. They like going to big things. They like the hymns. They like the icons and the structure of the building and the grand this and the beautiful that and the sound of that. And they like the environment of church, but they don't like the person of Christ. They're not really focused on him. They're focused on all the things, right? We get kind of in our routine. We do our things. And in the end, where is him? And so I can get very involved with the servants and the service and the bazaar. We have one coming up next week, and the food and the running around, and I'll clean the church and I'll do this and I'll do this, and we're all just doing stuff and no one's Doing what? Sitting at the feet of Christ, right? We're all like Martha, running around and doing stuff. Yeah, yes?
I have a quick question. Can you elaborate more on how can someone love the church environment and not love the community?
Oh, it's easy. You can say, look at me, I love the hymns. I love this hymn. Are you praying? I mean, if I'm just making sounds with my throat, am I praying, or am I just really love this hymn? Okay, it's very easy to fall into that category, or to get involved. I mean, I'm not saying you hate Christ, but it's not that you have this personal relationship with Christ. It's that you have this relationship with the church, of services, of meetings, of going to things, of doing things. But me and Christ one-on-one, where's that? That's what I'm talking about. And so there can be superficiality in lots of different ways, right? So in one thing, I mean, I know many of you are Sunday school servants, and sometimes when we have to prepare a talk, we can be very superficial in the way we prepare a talk, right? I mean, you can, the night before, someone says, oh, shoot, I got to give the talk tomorrow. I'll just do it in the morning. What's the topic again? Right? I know I do this all the time, right, when I ask you guys what the topic is, but like when you're 18, it's different, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can wing it. I can talk about that, right? And so you end up winging a whole bunch of things, and you haven't really prepared, right? And the preparation, there's one person who says, yeah, I think I can come up with a talk on that. Versus there's another person who thinks about and prepares about their talk for the entire week. Thinks about pieces of it, rehearses it, prays about it, thinks deeply about it, goes back and prays and says, God, what else should I be saying here? Right? And adds more and more to their lesson every, few hours, right? Because they're just meditating on this one thing, going deeper and deeper and deeper, and thinking about the story of the gospel, if that's what they're preparing, over and over and over again, and read it 5, 6, 10 times over the course of the week, thinking about, like, what do I want to say here? What is there to be said here? God, what do you want me to say here, right? And so there's a big difference between winging it that morning and the person who's prepared that entire week. And then think to myself, I need this lesson myself. What am I getting out of this lesson? What am I going to learn out of this? I'm not doing this for the kids. Forget the kids. What am I getting here? What's the lack in my spiritual life? And a lot of times, when I give talks on things, usually I'm giving the talk to myself. Usually I'm addressing things that I'm lacking, I'm missing, that I feel could be better in my life. And then thinking about every word as a responsibility to the kids and judging myself on it. Like, am I being faithful to the service that I was given? I mean, these kids are being put in my hands, right? Are these words just coming out of my mouth and I'm just like, yeah, blah, 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 I got to fill 15 minutes? Or it's like, I get 15 minutes with these kids who are the sons of God. They're his kids. Am I going to feed them the way they need to be fed, the way they deserve to be fed, the way they deserve to be loved? Right? Am I going to judge myself and evaluate myself, pray as I give the talk? Or is it superficial and just, I'm going to, just do whatever, give them some candy and they'll be done? The next place we can have superficiality is in interactions with one another. You can imagine someone serving, and you're serving in a class or something, and you don't even know the names of the kids you're serving. You're in a class, you've been in class for 2 months, and you're like, yeah, I don't know these kids, I don't know who they are. What? You don't know their names? You don't know their parents? You haven't visited them? You haven't shown them love? You're just going through the motions and saying a bunch of words at a bunch of kids, or even giving them hymns and just saying, just repeat after me and just say what I'm saying and don't really worry about. Right? So another person, on the contrary, goes to their homes, knows what's going on at school, knows about this one person they're having trouble with. They're getting bullied at one thing, they got a bad math teacher in another, right? Their parent is difficult here, right? And it should be the case that when, you see one of these kids, you can immediately take them aside and go, how are things going with dad? How are things going with that kid you told me about last week? How are things going up with whatever class, right? And we should be able to do this with each other. What's going on in each other's lives should be going on in our lives. We should be thinking about those people. And again, connecting our heart with their heart, right? It should be the heart of God. And the heart of God is all love, right? The heart of God always wants to know and wants to feel and carry your burden with you, right? One of the beautiful things in the stories of Christ is when he would heal somebody, oftentimes it would say things like he would groan in the spirit. And you're like, why is he groaning in the spirit? What does that mean? And the fathers tell us that when he would say, I groan in the spirit, it's because he took their sickness. He would take it. He would carry it. Right? And that's what we're called to be with each other, right? Especially for those kids. Take their cross and carry it with them. Don't just stare at them and say, oh, that's like a really hard cross. Sucks to be you, right? But rather be there with them, right? And carry that with them. And so when Christ would groan, it's because he felt the pain of the person. He would feel their pain. And so when I see my kids, I've been praying for them all week. I've been praying for them by name, by situation, knowing what they need. And when I see them at the end of the next week, I'm excited to see them again because I've been thinking about them all week, right? Every liturgy, every time I go to pray that night, I'm saying all their names and I'm thinking about all of them and they're in my heart. And that love is what changes them, right? Because when you've prayed for your kid all week, there's the change that's going to come from your prayers. And then there's going to be the change that's going to come because that kid, when he takes a look at you and you look at them and they see that look in your eyes, they're going to be like, wow, I think you were praying for me all week. I felt your prayers. And it's really a blessing when someone says that to you. I felt you praying for me this week. There's nothing more Christian than that, right? When A, you've been praying for somebody all week, and B, they can tell you, I felt your prayers all week, which means I know your heart is with mine. And that way, when I haven't seen you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it doesn't matter. We see each other and we pick up right where we left off, right? Because I know your heart and my heart have been there together this whole time. And you've been going through what I'm going through. There's a story about Tante Samira. You guys heard of Tante Samira? So Tante Samira, she passed away a few years ago, and she has a story that with Pope Kyrillos, she was alive during the time of Pope Kyrillos, and it was a story about her dad beating her. And he had beat her really badly at home, and she was, crying, and this is, how beautiful she is. When she went right to the cathedral to see the Pope, for comfort. Just an amazing thing. And she said when she walked in to see Pope Kyrillos, as soon as he saw her, he gave her a huge hug. And he said, I felt every blow with you. That's what he said to her. I felt every blow, Habibti. Right? So obviously he's a miraculous, a miracle worker, and he was there in the spirit, I suppose. I don't understand exactly what happened there, but the fact that he felt every blow with the person, right? That's the real deal. That's the real Christianity, right? It doesn't. Obviously we're not going to be able to feel that in the spirit like that, but I would hope that when our friends tell us about something, and when they're going through something, and when our kids are going through something, you can say, I feel every blow with you, right? As St. Paul says, we weep with those who weep, and we rejoice with those who rejoice. And so that's That's what we're going for. And then the opposite of that is there could be a servant who's thinking, how do I look? I wonder what people are saying about me. I wonder what Abuna thinks of my service. I wonder if I'm getting famous. I notice people start looking at me when I walk through the church because I think I'm getting famous. I think people have heard about me. What's my legacy going to be like? What are people going to remember about me? When I leave this church, will people talk about me after I'm gone? A lot of I statements, all about me. And it's very easy for this stuff to happen. It creeps in, you know. And that's why we can see people who've been serving for 10 years and never changed anybody, never had an effect, never made an impact. Why? Because the only impact they were looking for is their own name. The only impact they were looking for was their own glory, their own prestige, their own reputation. And so there is no impact. Right? They weren't looking for the hearts of others. They weren't praying for them daily in secret and privacy at every liturgy. They remained at the level of superficiality. They remained shallow. They remained at the surface. And they never went deep with anybody. And that's why there was no change. And it's kind of impossible to serve like that. There's no way you can serve for 10 years and be the same person or give the same talk. Right? You as a human have to be evolving, and the impact of your service has to be constant. I think I've told you all this story many times, but when we serve, we see it as a chance, as an opportunity, as a golden opportunity to serve with God himself, right? Can you imagine if, Pope Tewodros came and said, hey, Christian, could you come help me do something? Work on this website for me. And he goes, yeah, I'm too lazy to do it, I was too lazy for Archie to do it, but, Pope Tewodros, I'll do it. I won't be lazy. Christian's a good guy. I'm just giving him a hard time. But can you imagine if you get, I get the opportunity to work with him, right? But, Pope Tewodros is just a guy, right? But when we get the opportunity to serve with God, to actually serve with him, are we going to waste that and say, I'm just going to give a stupid lesson and just move on? Oh, is it my turn this week? Geez, we need more servants in this class. This is a chance to stand side by side. And you, like the disciples, you get to serve with Christ. What an opportunity. It's shocking that we get to do that. It's shocking that he lets us do that. To say, you know what, I'm going to be doing the work, but I'm going to let them see you instead of me. It's kind of like when the sun lets the moon shine. So humble of the sun, right? Just a stupid moon, dead rock, no light. And then the sun says, you know what, you take it from here. You can shine all night long. And people will look at you and go, oh, look how beautiful you are. You're just a bunch of dust. Just happen to be white-colored dust, so you reflect. Congratulations. Right? And the sun sits there, completely hidden, completely quiet, doing all the work, but letting the moon shine. And it was like, look at me, I'm dancing on the beach, and I'm amazing, right? And that's the chance we get to do when we serve with God. He does all the work, and people look at us and they go, look at that guy. And if we have any brains at all, or we have any sense of reality, we're like, me? You kidding? I'm just reflecting. I don't give off light. I don't have light to give. I told you guys a story about the crib, haven't I? A couple dozen times now. Maybe you guys haven't heard this story. When Justin was young, we bought another crib for Gregory. And so, you buy these things and they have like 2,000 parts in them. And so I laid out all the parts. Come on in, guys. See if you can Can you guys let them pass? The whole back row is empty. And now you're in the front. Now you're stuck.
Okay.
Your friends just left you back there. Yeah, they're going to be on Instagram back there, and you're just going to be sitting here. You can't be on Instagram. It sucks. You guys are lucky. Habibi. Well, you missed half the talk, so yeah, it's almost done. Anyway, so when we got this crib, it comes in like 2,000 parts. I laid out all the parts. The manual's like 17 pages long. There's 800 different kinds of screws, right? So I put all the things together, and then I take Justin and I say, all right, hey, Justin, you want to help me build this thing? He's like, yeah. So I take the screwdriver, I take screw A1, I put it in the hole B7, right? And I line it up, and I make sure it's not backwards, and I do all this work, right? And then I put the screw, and I start it a little bit, and then I take his hand, I hold his hand over, I put my hand over his hand, and I twist the screwdriver with him. He's only 3 or 4. And I twist it with him, and eventually we get there. And we do like 4 or 5 screws. And then he leaves because he's bored. And I spend the next 4 hours, finishing this thing. And what does he say? Mommy, I built the crib. Look at the crib I built, right? And you're like, you ridiculous freaking kid, right? I did all the work. I set up the whole thing. I thought it all through. I even held his hand and twisted it for him. And yet, what does mommy say? Good job building the crib. I get no credit. That's just standard. That's not important. What is that this is the way service works, right? Service is like this. God does everything. And he just says, all right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to twist the screwdriver over your hand. And that's the part you're going to do. And that's all we do. Right? That's all the service is. God doing everything and us and then in the end we're like, hey, look at me. Look what I did. It's ridiculous, right? But that's how we think. And so there's easily we can devolve into a superficiality of service where we think it's me. We think I'm the one who's doing stuff, right? And not recognizing that I get a chance to work with God. Right? I mean, if Elon Musk came in here and said, hey, anybody want an internship? You get to be my personal assistant, and I talk to you all the time and I work with you. You'd be like, oh my gosh, I get to work with Elon Musk. I would love that. Just 10 minutes having a conversation with that guy. That's just a guy. Right? Sorry, my phone keeps... And so when we stay at the superficial level, the symptom of being superficial in our service and superficial in our worship, the symptom is we don't change. Change is the natural consequence of interacting with God. I'll say that again. Change is the natural consequence of interacting with God. Right? We see this over and over in the stories, right? The story of the Samaritan woman, right? How long was she interacting with God? Half an hour with Christ? Maybe 20 minutes? Totally changed. Right? How many times have I come to liturgy, heard a talk, interacted, and nothing? Right? So change is the measure. It's like the thermostat, right? The thermometer, right? It's the thermometer, right? It's the measure of whether or not there's an effect. And there's no way I come into contact with God and come away the same. That's impossible. Right? And so when I see that I've been doing the same thing for 10 years and nothing's changed, something's wrong. Right? It's like you come up to a kid in 5th grade, you say, hey kid, what grade are you in? He says, I'm in 5th grade. Like, good job. And then 3 years later, hey kid, what grade are you in? He says, I'm in 5th grade. You say, something's wrong with that kid. Right? Why the heck are you still in 5th grade? And then 5 years later, I'm still in 5th grade. Yeah, there's something really wrong with that kid. Right? But unfortunately, sometimes I meet adults, and I'm like, hey, let's talk about spiritual life. And they say stuff that they said when they're 14. I'm like, you still 14, bro? Why are you still talking like that? Why are you still doing the same things you did when you were 14? When you pray, just say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. What are you, 14? at retreat? Just want to get through Our Father? That's it? That's still your relationship with God at 45? Our Father who art in heaven as fast as you can? You haven't grown? You haven't let God change you? You haven't let God in. Right? And so the service is an opportunity to let God into me. It's not me giving. It's letting him reflect off me, and in the process, letting him into me and changing me and making me into something that I wasn't before, something better. And so part of the problem with superficiality is it makes it difficult to reach me as a servant. So sometimes, and I fall into this trap all the time, I hear something really deep, something life-changing, something that should really affect me. And what do I say? That's really good. I'm going to use that in one of my talks. That's a problem, right? Because now my spiritual life isn't my spiritual life. It's my performance life. It's my talking life. I see a quote, instead of reflecting on that quote, I think, oh man, I should use that in a talk somewhere. I should put that on a slide. I could give a lesson on that. I should post that on one of the many chats I'm on, and people think I'm spiritual. Right? Instead of sitting with that quote and just saying, I'm going to save that one for me. I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to post it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to live it. Sorry. So what happens is I don't become introspective in that way. And so now, all of a sudden, as a servant, I'm not really letting God in. I'm just I'm a producer of God things, right? I just put out content. And I'm not allowing him to penetrate me. And what are the symptoms of this? The symptoms of this kind of service, and you can see this, the outcome of this is, as soon as you poke at a servant like this, and you say, hey, how about you do it like that? They'll be like, what? I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me what to do. Don't criticize me. And you see some people, when they get criticized, they get really bent out of shape, like really upset. Or when they get stopped, told not to serve, or moved out of the class they want to be in, they get really upset. Come on in, guys. I'll move back so you guys can sit in this first row. I think there's enough room. Actually, if you guys all scooch to the end, I think there'll be enough room. There we go. All right, perfect. So that kind of servant, unfortunately, is always in turmoil. Not just that, but you find a servant like that judging other servants. And they see other servants and they're like, yeah, that wasn't very good. Or they're not doing a very good job. Or they're not very effective with the kids. Constantly criticizing others. Why? Because they don't see the service as an indictment of themselves. They don't see it as a way to penetrate their own spiritual lives. They're producers, right? They're content producers. And unfortunately, then I criticize other content producers. And I get really upset when I'm not treated well, when I'm not given my due. Abuna didn't talk to me with respect. I've been doing this class for 10 years. I should be treated better than this. I should be given more respect. I should not be moved without my choice. I should have first dibs because I've been serving for this many years. So you hear things like that. I've been serving for this many years. Every time you hear a statement like that, you have to be very scared. Every time you say a statement like that, you should be very scared. Because that should be nothing. That should never cross your mind. I've been doing, that's a human, earthly concept. Like there's some loyalty program. If I've been serving for 10 years or more, I should be treated like such and such. No. Who said that? Right? When you speak like that, that's a symptom that something's wrong inside. right? That I should be treated with more respect. And so the superficiality leads to a lack of depth. And we can find this in the lack of depth in prayer. Once you find yourself reciting words, and we have to be really careful, right? In the Orthodox Church, we have a lot of beautiful prayers that are, scripted for us. They're not our words. So I can easily find myself just saying the words. Lord, forgive my sins. Lord, forgive my iniquities. Lord, forgive my trespasses. Lord, visit the sick of your people. Heal them for the sake of your holy name. Our fathers and brothers have fallen asleep. Repose their souls. Slow down. Did you just mean any of those things? Who are you saying them to? Is anyone listening? Are you even praying? Right? So I can find myself saying these incredibly, amazingly nice words and have nothing on the inside. No depth, no feeling, no heart, no nothing. Right? And once I get in that place, that's where the superficiality comes. My phone just keeps stopping here. I'll tell you a story about a monk. He used to pray the liturgy, and when he would get to the part where the priest says, lift up your hearts, and they said, and we're supposed to say what? There with the Lord. He couldn't say that part because they weren't with the Lord. He's like, my heart isn't with the Lord. And this particular monk, he was in Der Baramos, he would just start crying after that part because he couldn't finish it, because he couldn't say it. Right? And I think to myself, geez, I say that all the time. I got no problem saying that. Lift up your hearts, there with the Lord. Yes, they are. And this guy couldn't finish the sentence. So you can see how much respect he has for the words. Like, am I just faking this? Am I just saying it? Am I just going through the motion? Right? And if you stay in that very shallow, superficial place where I just say the things and I feel good about myself, I did it. I went to liturgy 3 times this week. Yay. Now, of course, there's always a blessing in taking communion. But be careful you don't trick yourself into checking boxes. Right? Communion is a time where I connect with my Father. Not just a time to check the box. Not just a time to go do the thing and then, feel good about it later. Okay, so how do I get this depth? How do I avoid the superficiality that can come in the service, that can come in worship, that can come in my life in general? First thing is, never settle. Don't ever settle for superficial. Don't ever settle for shallow. Don't ever settle for I said a bunch of words and then you're like, yeah, I said them. You know what? Start over. Start over. Right? If you find yourself reading the Bible and you're like, I got to do my chapter a night, which is just a terrible thing to do, and you got to the end of the chapter, you're like, I don't remember what I read. Start over. Don't settle. You don't have to read the whole chapter. Read 2 verses and really mean it. Pray it. Think about it. Let it come over you. Let it penetrate you. Don't settle for just garbage. And one solution is this fear of God. Do I really fear him? Am I really in awe of him? Do I really get him? Or have I reduced church to a pretty building, lovely tunes, incense, social, community? Or do I really get, this is God? Is this really what I'm doing? Is this really who I'm standing before? Is he really allowing me to do this? And so introspection is like one of these really important things we all have to do. Take the time, sit with yourself, get off the phone, and introspect. Think about the day. Think about what went right, what went wrong, what I could have done better, how I messed up, how I hurt somebody, how I lost my temper, how I fell into sin. Every day should be a day where I sit down and I think deeply about myself. What's going right, what's going wrong? Why did I say that? Why did I want people to know I did this thing? Why did I mention that story? Why did I tell Abuna what happened? Why did I tell the other servants what happened? Why did I tell those parents that thing I did for their kid? Why did I tell them? So that they would know that I did that thing for their kid. And then think about that. Is that why I'm doing it? Is that who I'm doing it for? Do I even care about parents? Do I even care about priests? Do I care about anybody? Who do I serve? Who do you serve? Do I serve parents? Do I serve kids? Do I serve clergy? Do I serve God? I serve God. Do I serve the church? Do you serve the church? Is that just, this is a building? Just a building. I serve God in the church, do I not? Right? I don't serve church. I don't know what that means, to serve church. I serve people. I serve God in people. That's who I serve. So we have to stay very focused. When I start doing things, and I'm doing them because it's appearances, and this looks good, and I'm trying to raise money for the church, and I just want to... Wrong answer. So Jesus said this, hi Jolene. Jesus said something very scary. Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the Pharisees, then you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. What does it mean? They were shallow and superficial. They served people. They served the looks. They served what people thought of them. They prayed in the streets. They prayed for a long time in front of everybody. So you have to monitor yourself. Check yourself. Serve faithfully. Am I really getting to the heart of things, or am I just allowing the surface stuff to continue? Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? I'll stop there. Yes, sir.
We were talking about the thing where Jesus said, "Depart from me, I don't know you." From what I've read and understood as the official interpretation, it was in regards to the Aryans and Nestorius and whatnot.
The what? The Aryans?
Were in the first council where they said, how they thought, yeah.
Oh.
That was what it was in regards to.
I don't think it's just in regard to heretics. No, I think you can. You may have you don't have to be an Arian to be in that boat. You can talk about Christ, prophesy about Christ, and not really know him, just know about him. I don't think it necessarily has to mean a heretic. Yes, sir.
So when you're talking about the I did this myself, even though it was God's action, is that for service specifically, or does it also apply for other positions, maybe in a secular?
It's for everything, absolutely everything. So the question is, did I do this or did God do this? And every success is God's. And the reason that's so important is it keeps you from having false humility, right? So, false humility is when, somebody who's really smart says something like, no, I'm not smart, I'm stupid. It's like, no, you're not stupid, you're smart. And you should say, and glory be to God, right? And C.S. Lewis talks about this, say a girl who's really beautiful says, no, I'm not beautiful, I'm ugly. You're not ugly. You're beautiful. And you had nothing to do with it. Glory be to God. Right? So the way we avoid false humility is we recognize the reality of the situation. Right? Everything I have is a gift. Any ability I have in my mind, my ability to speak, my ability to draw, my ability to sing, my ability to reason, my ability to deal with other people, all that's a gift. So then it's very easy to claim the gift and not feel arrogant, right? I mean, look at the people who wrote the icons in this chapel. They're the best iconographers in the world. And I can tell them that, and they should have no pride, right? Because I can't draw a stick figure to save my life, right? And I love icons, but I can't draw a stick figure. Are they better than me? Are they holier than I am? No. God gave them the gift to draw. I didn't get that gift. Should they take pride in that gift and say, man, I'm so good? No. You can draw, I can't. One has a gift, one does not. Where did the gift come from? When they were conceived, they had that gift. It just happened then, right? So that way you can draw and you can say, yeah, I think I'm one of the best iconographers in the world, and have no pride in that statement. And just saying, glory be to God. This hand is his. Watch what he can do with it. Watch this. There it is, right? So once we have a true sense of what we are, like the moon, right? You can say, I am extremely bright at night. I am a full moon. I light up the ocean. I am gorgeous. And I have no light coming from me. No problem. Am I gorgeous? Absolutely. Are songs written about me? Yeah. Is it romantic and beautiful? And yes, I'm the best. And none of it comes from me. It's all reflection. Total humility, total reality. Any other questions, comments? Sleepiness? Yes, sir.
Why would we talk about like the iconographers? You say that they're some of the best iconographers when you know it's all God. Like you say they are good.
Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. So instead...
I'm not correcting you.
Yeah, no, you can correct me anytime. My kids do it all the time. I mean, you can say they're, so like one of the traditions in iconography is you don't sign your name on an icon. You'll write it, okay, thanks. But some iconographers will write the name on the back, or they'll write by the hand of blah, 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 right? So the point is, this was my hand, but it wasn't me. So yeah, I mean, so you can say, you could say that. You could say that person is the best iconographer in the world because it's that person, but that person knows it's God's glory, right? Or you can say, I love what God has done through you. And I say that to people all the time. Clergy, who have a gift for something. I'll say, God's given you so many gifts. May God continue to bless you and your gifts. Right? Because then it gives it a better perspective, I think.
They didn't do that with them.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying, some traditions, they do that. And that's why, by the way, at the end of any talk, and this is a nice little tradition we have in the Orthodox Church, right? We don't clap, right? Because when you clap, you're clapping for what? For me, right? For the speaker. But what does the speaker say? And glory be to God, right? And that's how we end a talk. Yes? No, I wouldn't clap. I don't. I mean, like for spiritual talks, I don't clap. I mean, it's culturally appropriate to clap, but in the church, I mean, it's even though it's culturally appropriate, to always clap. When the speaker says "and glory be to God," if you liked my talk, that's nice. Glory be to God. So that's why we ended, say, and glory be to God. All right. Thank you.